The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com. And good morning. Welcome to the Old School Podcast, a podcast about the American education system, its quirks, its traits, its qualities, its problems and solutions, insofar as we know the solutions. But we've also been known to dabble into other areas. As we will today, we will continue with the music theme. And with me in this endeavor, my good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois.
Hey, Miller.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. It's good to see you. Now I'm turning up the volume because you sounded quiet to me there, and not used to that. You're usually shouting at me. Um, yeah, it's a great day. It feels like spring, and I know the spring doesn't really last very long here. In fact, we may have already missed it because I'm sweating. Obviously, just going outside for 5 minutes. I used to just think about going outside and I'd start to perspire right when I moved from Oregon to Texas. It was just the thought of it and sweating. I couldn't believe it.
Well, you said it before. You are an indoor cat, so perhaps this is further evidence of that.
yeah, for sure. I get the mail once a day. That's maybe it. Well, why don't you introduce our guest? We're excited to kind of have a continuation theme of last week, but also somebody that actually worked with you for.
Yes. So we have a true Renaissance woman with us. She is an athlete. She is an educator. She is a musician, and wherever she goes, she immediately becomes the coolest person in the room. I'm talking, of course, of Michelle Mayfield. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. That's a great introduction. I'm not sure that's all true, but I appreciate it. Nevertheless, it's good to be with y'all.
Well, before we get started, I do have a kind of a follow-up to an earlier discussion. So, Michelle, about a month ago, I was in England to see a soccer game. I had tickets to two games. We got to see one. That was great. The other one, unfortunately, I was sold fake tickets and I was barred from entering the stadium. And it was my favorite team. Everton is my favorite team, and I wasn't able to go. But Steve, you're not going to believe this. So the Premier League has got a summer series in the United States consisting of four teams. One of those teams is your very own Everton Football Club. So I'll be flying to Chicago. I have bought a ticket. I have it on good authority. It is a good ticket, but I don't know. It didn't have a barcode on it. I got it from Ticketmaster. It didn't have a barcode on it. I called the people at Ticketmaster and asked them, shouldn't there be a barcode on this thing? And right, don't worry, you're going to be good.
Yeah, what could go
I
wrong?
don't know.
Well, you just jumped right on that. We didn't even talk about it. You just bought it, and there you are. So, are you going by your lonesome?
I'm going by my lonesome. And then afterwards, I'm flying to Quebec because my in-laws, they have their 50th wedding anniversary. So I'm just going to join them in Quebec. But I have a couple of soccer friends. And then once none of them could go, I decided, well, hell, I'll just go by myself. But I sure as hell hope this is a valid ticket.
Well, good luck to you here, Miller. Is another one
Wrong indeed.
disappointing.
It
You, me-
was this.
you mentioned Michelle's an athlete. Are you what do you coach? Do you play? What do you do?
I don't do much anymore, honestly, physically. I
You
blew
go
my
get the
AC.
mail once a day.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do. I work out. I've got a rowing machine at home. I try and at least stay in shape. But yeah, as far as I blew my knee out playing flag football when I was, gosh, 37, 38. So I kept up the athleticism, the fun stuff, the playing way too hard into my late 30s. But once I blew the ACL out, that was it. So yeah, I don't do much anymore. And yeah, my daughter is she delves into all kinds of different things. She's been into gymnastics and soccer, and I got to coach her for 1 year in soccer. Talking about soccer,
Yeah.
which she just I don't think she loved that. But yeah, the extent of my competitiveness now is on a poker table. I like to play a little Old'em, but yeah. So not much anymore. I'm grown. I've gotten smarter in my old age and trying to keep my body as healthy as possible, not break anything else. I've had too many surgeries.
Wow, that's a serious injury. That's a career ending or definitely season
Yeah,
ending. But for many of us, that would, kind of do it.
it ended it for me, but I got 37, 38 good years out of it. So
Oh, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Well, listen, so you as a musician, you primarily play, this may sound like a strange question. When you pick up the guitar, just for giggles, you're just passing time. Besides your own music, what is the first kind of song or whose song do you start playing when you just pick up the guitar and you're just messing about?
No one's, because I'm
No
not
one's?
much of a guitar player. I'll be real honest with you. Yeah, I mean, my drums was my first instrument. I started playing drums when I was 7, 8 years old, and I didn't have lessons. My cousin had an old kit. It looked like Ringo Starr's kit, and I sent him $5 a week and bought it, and I just knew how to play. I just played it, and I got better, and got in band 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and I didn't start playing guitar till, gosh, probably my early 30s, I had to because I was writing lyrics, and I heard this music in my head, and I had no way to communicate it or get it out, and so I was like, "I've got to teach myself guitar." Um so yeah, if I could, it'd probably be a Sheryl Crow song, or Pat Benatar, of course. Those are my 2, or maybe a Barracuda,
Nice.
yeah, I'm not a great guitar player. I'm trying to get better. I'm working on it, but I've gotten my second CD, my second album, my second recording. I wrote that all on the acoustic guitar. So I can get by, but, I need to get much better, so yeah, I'm a
So when you
drummer.
talk about Sheryl Crow and Pat Benatar and Hart and things like that, would you say that they were your influences coming in? I mean, you came in as a drummer musically. Were they your inspirations to the guitar, or were they just in general, were they your inspirations into music?
Just into music. I mentioned Barracuda, and, the reason for that is because, my aunt and uncle gave me the Little Queen album for Christmas. I believe it was 1978, and I have no idea who are these 2 ladies on the front of this album,
Wow.
I put it on and do, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away, and I'm so thankful for them giving me that album because Heart is absolutely amazing and just legends. Um, but, um, just musically, it was never about the guitar for me. In fact, I didn't really even think about writing and writing my own lyrics and being a singer-songwriter till later, gosh, probably in my early 20s. I wanted to be Pat Benatar and just be out in the front belting it out. So yeah, the guitar really never came in, um, until a lot later. I wish it had. My mom did get us lessons when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and, uh, I had an instructor. Apparently, this instructor was really mean and hit us with rulers or something in one lesson, and we
Gosh.
were out. So, it was that time where, unfortunately, I didn't get to stick with those lessons. I wish I would have, but, yeah,
Well, that you mentioned Heart. The album is right there with all my others from the 1970s. The real deal.
I've
It's
still
my
got
sis-
mine as well.
yeah,
Yes,
it's my sister's album. She listened the heck out of it, and somehow it has ended up in my closet. But yeah, those are the things that get worn out, you know,
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah, what a great album.
Well, I'm curious how you kind of got to where you are, and you're professionally you're doing other things in addition to music, and I'm kind of familiar with that type of life, where you decide, are you moonlighting, or do you have, do you have a day job in addition to music? And I always thought of everything I did, even teaching, as a day job, you know, probably forever. I was always trying to get out of it. And I wonder if you had that experience.
Well, teaching can be a day job, but for most of us, it's not, and
Mhm.
especially, and Ross, you know that, you get to take it home, you get to know these kids,
Yeah.
and whether if you're coaching, which was what I did for the first 15 years of my educational career, and now as administrator, you're it's not an 8 to 5 job, and I figured that out very quickly when I kind of just uh, pulled up shop and moved to Austin to be a full-time musician. I realized real quickly that I needed a full-time job. I couldn't just make it, by music alone or by being a server at Applebee's, which was, I thought that was gonna pay the bills, and it didn't. So education and music have just been intertwined throughout my career. I did quit. My first job was a head coaching job at a college. My
Wow.
first job out of graduate from A&M. I went back to Belton where I grew up and was a grad assistant at Mary Hardin Baylor there in Belton. And the next year, the head job softball came open. I got it. So that was my first job, which is kind of the height of that's kind of the pinnacle in coaching. Those that know, the coaching careers, people work their whole lives to get a head coaching job. But so that's where I started and did great and loved it. But 2 years in, just one night I had just an epiphany. I want to pursue music full time,
Mhm.
and so I quit and moved to Austin. But just a few years in, I missed the coaching, so I went back. I ended up getting a head softball job at Round Rock High School. Go Dragons!
Mhm.
And but was doing music at the same time, so they've always just been intertwined, and it's just something that very tiring. I eventually got burned out doing both, working a full-time job like coaching, and singing and doing gigs at night. I don't know how I did it vocally now that I look back on it, because I was coaching basketball and softball, and of course, we all know those are you have to do a lot of yelling and so not quite sure how vocally I got through that time, but, I did, but yeah, it's always been intertwined, and I love kids. I love working with kids. I think that's my passion. They're both my passion, just the education piece as well as music, so I try and do 'em.
Curious about the artistry and creativity because you have been involved in three distinct type of endeavors, all of which require a certain amount of artistry and creativity, be it a player, a coach, be it a teacher, an educator, and also being a musician. When you think about the artistry and the creativity required as a musician, how is it different from the the creativity you have to display in the other jobs? Does it require something distinctly different, or is it the same thing but just directed in different ways?
But I think it's different. I mean, as an educator, as an administrator, it's all day, every day, it's solving problems, it's thinking out of the box, it's being creative, but it's in ways much different from the music. The music is internal, the music is personal, the lyrics are personal, especially the way I write. It's the experiences that I've had, it's feelings I've had. Sometimes I will write from second person, but not often. So it's just deeply personal as far as the music goes and the creativity. You're absolutely right though. You got to have both. And certainly the passion, is there. You can't stay in education and especially this day and age with everything going on the outside as far as education goes, you have to really love it to stay in it. So, and I do, but yeah, definitely you need both for both sides, but very different for me.
You brought up the process to write, and some musicians are pretty famous for their writing process, usually as like a duo, usually with another person. Do you have a specific kind of process that you have to write a song? Is it just something that just comes out and you jot down some lines? What is your process? How do you go about creating those songs?
It's really, it's different. It depends. Gosh, when I first, moved down to Austin and when was trying to find musicians to work with and creative partners, it was very much a process or a situation where it, I felt like I was the creative source, and I had these lyrics and I had these melodies in my head, and it was really more of, okay, this is what I'm thinking, here's my lyrics, this is what I'm hearing in my head. So it was like a bum bum bum, and then they play along and, oh yeah, that's it. So it was really a very, gosh, very slow process, unfortunately, because again, I don't have any, I've never had any beyond, middle school, high school band. I never have had, and I did have some vocal lessons before I recorded my first CD, but never had any formal education in music. So uh, I don't have that background. So it was very much just very organic and just sing what I was hearing and kind of communicate to whoever's working with what I was hearing from, the music or the chords, and hopefully they would hit it or get somewhere close, and then we'd get to, and then hopefully it'd come together, and it did. My second, my second recording, What Lies Within, I did all that myself. I, started practicing and working on the guitar, and sometimes it would be I'm in the car and I'm just driving and lyrics hit me, and so I'd pull up. Well, I didn't know that I had a cell phone back then, but I would, I think I had a recorder, a little, the little tape recorder that I had handy just in case. So I'd hit record and I would, the lyrics would just come out. Um, for the second recording, it was mainly me sitting at the guitar and just grinding it out and writing lyrics and playing around with different chord progressions and things like that, and it just came together. Um, and that's really what's happening now, as far as, 'cause I'm writing some new material and trying to, kind of broaden the depth and, of my material and the lyrics and the chord arrangements. But, so yeah, it really differs. It just comes, and like I said, you hear, I think I remember Don Henley talking about, I can't remember what song it was, maybe Boys of Summer, that he woke up in the middle of the night and the lyrics, he just had a dream, it just came to him. Uh, some of my songs have just come to me like that. I mean, I've written it, a few minutes and boom, it's the lyrics are done, and then the hard work of, putting the melody and the music to it is, that's always a challenge, but especially for me with, my lack um, of guitar and knowledge, but I hear it, just hear it in my head.
There have been some great documentaries about bands who collaborate. I think about Fleetwood Mac, but also the Beatles. Very different approaches. I can remember seeing Stevie Nicks come in with a song lyric fully formed, and she could play rudimentary piano, but just enough, and actually really worked. And she'd
Yeah.
play Stevie Nicks sing the final version of the song, basically, and then they put their layers of interest. But the collaboration is really after the perfect song was written and fully formed. Uh, the Beatles, tend to, they have, just ideas or, maybe a little piece of something, a headline from the news, and then they would just jam it out. They would be playing it multiple times and the lyrics would change dramatically. So you listen to the early versions, you think this is pretty silly. How are they going to make this work? And then it shifts, it morphs, but really, as a classical musician, 'cause that's my initial training, really inefficient,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah, it's just so missing.
Definitely. Your mind's probably just blowing when you're
But it,
watching that thinking, "No, go there."
yeah, yeah, but it was interesting because George Martin, their producer,
Yeah.
was classically trained, and he didn't step in, because I would say, I need to run this rehearsal,
Right?
don't care who you are, you need to have somebody lead a rehearsal because nobody was leading anything. But George Martin just kind of walked in, he'd leave, and then because he knew that what they were doing worked, of course, these are some of the greatest songs. He let them do their process, and it probably would have been different, if he'd have put his stamp on it more. He did it afterwards, but
Sure.
in the middle. But I love watching that. But yeah, it was really hard to see them kind of running into these dead ends that could be solved very easily, you know. But they had this instinct. I think that's the thing about composing. And Paul McCartney said that the things that you compose quickly tend to be the most personal and meaningful. They just, like you were saying, they just come to you, and it's more your subconscious. But if you're trying to craft it, you get in your way with that process.
Absolutely, and I've been in situations I had some great bands in Austin that would, back me up, and especially for What Lies Within, all of those songs, it took the songs crafted and done and just went in and played, the acoustic, and then they just added to it, and it was so fun to see this baby grow and, and that's so much fun, kind of those jam sessions when you go in and, things will, "Oh, wait, hang on, I got an idea," and you just it's really cool. That's one of the best things about music is that piece, just that jam and how things come together, and there's no feeling like it besides performing, being on stage, which is, that's the best part about all this.
Yeah, that's the trouble with real life. You don't have that same type of adrenaline rush. I mean, how can you get better than composing something and then having an audience love it and you're in the moment performing it?
Absolutely.
So that's tough. I mean, athletics gives you that high, and I was a coach also. I taught tennis
Okay.
many years as a head coach in Fort Worth, and but it's similar. You get that feeling, and a different connection with students, very different than in the classroom teaching German. But eventually, your career becomes all of them, and you make peace with it. But it's hard. I mean, I actually quit perfectly good teaching positions twice to embark. I didn't last as long as you did. I never did 3 years. I went. I guess it was just a few months, and then because you notice the funds are dropping, and if you have a family to support, you think, wait a minute. I overestimated,
Yeah.
or underestimated. It's a slow process to if you want to make it. Unless people don't really get discovered like that. Like suddenly you're a star. You have to do all this work, and it's completely risky. And Austin's an expensive town to live in too.
Very much so. Yes, it is. And
So there's a
it's so many, there's a lot of competition
Yeah. Oh
musically
yeah.
there, clearly. I mean, so yeah, to get
It's
noticed, it's tough.
it's quality control. I mean, I notice I play with a lot of jazzy musicians from UNT, University of North Texas, top notch. Everybody that just sits in with you, and I think Austin has this level. Everybody's good, you know.
Sure.
We're talking about the idea of the writing process and talking about how that comes to be. With writing as in like novels or literature, they all the trait uh, advice that people give is write what you know. Do you think that the tortured artist thing is a trope that's a bit over exaggerated? Do you have to have the suffering in order to write suffering, or can you or do you think that it's possible to write about things that you haven't personally gone through?
I think it's possible. I think people do it all the time, with the formula writing that you see today. But I happen to believe in that tortured poets type thing because I think I've lived it. I mean, when I met my wife and um, when I finally got happy, I ran out of things to write about, and I tell her that all the time. And but so yeah, no, I think yeah, absolutely. I mean. Um, that hurt, that pain brings out a lot of that's it is definitely it gets the creative juices going, at least it did for me. Most of my songs are about lost love or lost chances or so I believe in that. Although, I'm still happy now and I'm having to dig to write. Some things are coming, because I've last 3 or 4 years of my life, I've lost my parents. I've gone through probably the toughest years of my life recently. So I'm drawing from those experiences to write some new materials. So, and that's obviously that's pain. That's, that's
Mhm.
sadness, that's loneliness. And so yeah, I am a believer of that. Just because it's personal experience.
It is something you see because you think about one musician and songwriter I love is Elton John, and so throughout the '70s and early '80s, when he was just a mess,
Yep.
he you know he wrote some of the most interesting, the most fascinating, the most nuanced, multi-layered songwriting that has ever been done. And then once he got clean, once he got happy, and once he met the love of his life, now he's writing Disney soundtracks, and it's just not the same fan of Elton John in the 70s could not be as enthusiastic about The Lion King as they were about, Mad Hatters and what have you. And so there is something to that you see.
Uh,
Absolutely, yeah, and agreed, yeah. It's kinda like the well runs dry a little bit, the happier you get, and it's, yeah, I can't explain it, but yes, I do believe in it.
I
That's a
think
good
it's
a good an analogy though, Elton John, that's
Elton John and that,
rock
yeah,
on. Yes.
I like that song too, Mad Hatters. I'm, the I'm kind of using a statistical formulation here and saying there's an inverse relationship between the your happiness and the quality of your art. Because yeah, that is the source, and you don't see a lot of great musicians coming out of that we all know about coming from the suburbs and happy homes. You know
Yeah,
they come from various places, but the struggle, I think that's the human bond that communicates most. So they feel what you're doing, and they know you're not acting, and that connects through your lyrics and your performance. And then the danger, I think, is you get the idea of repeating yourself because you did this and now okay, that worked, I'm going to do it again. And I think that with someone like Elton John, they're trying to sell records, and there's a lot of self plagiarism in the feel of the song. But for most of these groups, their early stuff you know tends to be the best, unless it's a historically great group that matures. And some of these singer-songwriters, Joni Mitchell and others, mature into, even deeper songs. And that's rare. And I'm so excited that you're continuing to write songs, and because that's the outlet. But if you don't experience that, you know, people will say, well, they're writing songs to perform, but they're actually writing because they have to.
yep, agreed, agreed, and, not that I wanna get into AI or anything like that,
No,
which
do it, please. Tell us about
scares the hell out of me. I mean, I just, I I I just am I grew up, uh, Gordon Lightfoot, I mean, just, those singer-songwriters and I have a hard time, with using other means, the AI and even the sampling and those types
it.
of things.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan, but, I mean, they sell records, and that's what's important, especially these days. The last 20 years of music, it's just I, I'll just say that I listen to a lot of, my playlist of '80s and '90s and, because it's just the, quality it's very formulaic and I mean, you can hear it, it's, again, to sell records, so
Switch from songwriting, although I have so many questions. We could probably do an entire hour on songwriting, but I'm curious also for someone who's never, of course, experienced this, you two have. Well, I remember listening to an interview with Nate Bargatze. He's a comedian, and someone asked him about being in front of a massive crowd, just cheering and laughing and what have you. He said the cheering and laughing is great. He said the incredible thing is the silence when they're paying attention, when they're
Mm.
focused in on what you're saying. Does that translate musically? What is the what is the thrill of being on stage about? What is that like?
Steve, you wanna go there? You want me to answer first?
I'd like to too. I need to, because I mean, you're a performer, it's a little bit, I mean, I guess we all are, but you're leading a band, you're the front person.
Yeah.
So, no, I want to hear your story and answer.
There's nothing like it. Um, gosh, you often hear, musicians say that's not me, that's a different person, that's a different persona, and that's in many ways true. I'm very much an introvert, but when I get on stage or even when I get a mic in my hands, even here at at school, Ross, you know that, if we're up at an assembly or a pep rally, I don't have any problem putting a mic in my hand, and I do turn into a um, different person when I'm here at work than on the stage, clearly, but, there's nothing like it. I started working, at small clubs, and I was very lucky that I had a great friend base, in Austin that I didn't, I had the fortunately, I'd never really had to play for an empty room, which was nice. Now, the rooms weren't always full, and so, the silence thing you mentioned is amazing if they're actually listening, and watching you because sometimes they could be, you know, um, but there's nothing like it, and especially, you know, gosh, it's just hard to explain, the feeling, and it's just an adrenaline. For me, it's a feeling that I can't replicate anywhere else, no matter where else I am. The closest probably would be when we're coaching
Mhm.
and get that success, or one of your, one of your players hits a walk-off homer and you won the championship, that kind of thing, but that's them. That's not me, that's all them doing that. That wasn't me. When you're on the stage, it's me. Or when I'm on the stage, it's me. And those are my songs, and when people identify with those songs, I know, Matter of Time is a song that I've had a lot of people identify with, and is one of, what was one of, the favorites of those that would come and listen to my shows, and it's one of those little slower type ballads, love song, um, and that would be a song that, you get the people are actually listening, and it's just there's no feeling like it. It makes it worth it. It's just kind of indescribable, honestly, but it's I can't wait to get back to that, and it obviously, I've never played in front of a huge amount or audience like the comedian that you were mentioning, um, a lot of places that I played, people were there just, to listen. A lot of places they were there to party and to take shots, and they'd be at the bar talking, and so you just have a mix of what your crowd is doing, when they're there. It doesn't matter as long as they're there, at some point, and that's even some of the challenge
Mhm.
for me with those that weren't listening. Okay, what am I gonna do to get them watching and to listening up here? So that was always a challenge for me just from that, competitive, spirit that I come from, or what am I gonna do to get these people's attention? So, but yeah, there's nothing like being on stage and performing, and I was lucky to have, people at my shows, and blessed, from the beginning, so except maybe my high school band. I did have a band in high school, and yeah, uh,
What was the name of the band?
mid-range.
Okay.
Had
All
no
right.
idea what it meant. It was, my buddy Todd was the lead guitarist, he named the band, and I just figured out recently what that meant because again, little education music-wise. But yeah, I was Pat Benatar. I just wanted to be Pat Benatar when I was, up in front and when I was playing the drums, I don't know who I was trying to be, but, I'm sure it was pretty bad if we had any recordings of it. But it was fun. It
Nothing
was
wrong with Pat Benatar.
oh my goodness, no, not at all. Yes, she's amazing.
See, for you, it's a different vibe because I mean, you're not, as far as playing the piano, playing it either as part of a quartet or quintet or part of a solo thing. Yours is a completely different experience, but in our conversations that we've had, not too dissimilar as far as the feelings go.
Yeah, I mean, I tended to not play when people are dancing, throwing beer bottles at chicken wire or anything. I'm playing jazz in really expensive restaurants and, hotels so it's different. So it's not necessarily a performance. You become part of the ambiance of what's happening. But you introverted that. I mean, you as in that's what I would do. And so I was very comfortable walking into a full restaurant, and take the piano and start playing. And they have a little moment of man, what are you doing here? What do you, why, who is this? And then they say, oh, okay. And then they go on with it. But the one thing that I learned early on, actually, I learned this from my mother, is that you don't take it personally, if they're not all hanging on or applauding, but they are listening. And there's always one person, and my image is an old man, standing in the back, who knows every word to the song and is having a real experience. And so I'm kind of playing to that man all the time. And I know all the words, and I was kind of trained to do that too, because you're playing the song, for them, and then you're doing some creative things around it. But you want that person to have the experience, and that person is always there. And sometimes they come talk to you after, but often it's kind of this you're doing it in silence, and then you drive home. And these are really serious songs. I mean, you listen to the lyrics of you know, a lot of the Sinatra type songs in that era, that songbook. That if you know the words, there's some intensity there. And so driving home, you kind of have to process all that because you do go there, during that time. But a very different than you know performing and getting applause. I mean, it happens, but I'm almost like you know, I'll transition away. When I finish something, they're applauding. I'm already moving into what's going to come next, and it's just supposed to be part of their evening. So very different vibe. And I think I would have liked, performing. It would have been fun to be kind of a side person, a side man, as a pianist in a band, just kind of being up there and experiencing that excitement. I can definitely play blues. I could have been in a blues band. That would have been fun.
Yeah, well, it was funny you say that. Anytime I'm anywhere, whether it's a restaurant
Mhm.
or painted tree, we'll go shopping and there'll be a couple
Yeah,
of guys up there singing.
yeah,
I am always sure to applause
yeah,
every single time. I will clap, and I might be the only one clapping, but just because
yeah.
it
You
takes
know what it's
guts to get
like.
up there and do that, and
Mhm.
so yeah.
There's a song by Joni Mitchell, you may know it. It's called "Real Good and for Free." She tells a story about a clarinetist on the street who
Mm.
plays, and people just keep kind of walking by, but she, paused and took it all in, and it was a beautiful. And then just suddenly, this clarinet comes in at the end of the piece, just a touching moment. But she gets that, and I mean, she's one of the songwriters that I just every time I hear her, there's an emotional connection. It doesn't matter if I've heard it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
So it's tough to kind of transition from these great songwriters to me bringing up AC/DC, but uh,
Uh,
well, they're one of my favorite bands. But
yeah.
so they one of their first hits was "It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll," and the song is basically about as glamorous as it looks to be on stage and to be in front of people, that it is also horrible in many ways. There's a lot of tough times on the road. There's a lot of tough times in being in front of the crowd. For you, Michelle, what's been kind of the offset for as high as you can get being in front of a crowd, in front of people who are listening to you and appreciating you? What are the lows with regards to performing?
You know, probably the biggest part is just, people see who's on the stage. They don't know you, you know. It's a very inauthentic atmosphere. Um, just and it's wonderful for people to it shows and hey, let me buy you a beer or hey, let me have your autograph or that kind of thing. But it's just people don't know. I think about some of these, are the Justin Biebers, the Taylor Swifts of the world, that just these huge musicians and I understand how lonely it is because it is very lonely and because they don't know, they think they know you because they see this thing on the stage and they see this person on the stage and that's who they identify with. But when it comes to actually who am I as a person, who I am when I walk off the stage, they don't know you. And so it's a lonely, it can be very lonely. depending on what you have going on and what type of friendships that you have in place. And I know that for me personally, when I kind of I moved up here to Dallas and 2006, and then I think 2009 I did my last show because I got burned out, and my priorities personally changed. But going from somebody and and I quit coaching at the same time, and so you talk about a hit to your just to your as you as a person, you go from this person on a stage, this person on a field, and that need
Mhm.
that people have, and then to nothing. That took a lot of adjustment. That was very lonely as well. It took me a few years to find myself again, but so yeah, that's I guess that's the thing. It's a hard life. It's not as I mean, I did it on a very small level. I can't even imagine, the touring and the grind, and I can definitely understand how people get addicted and have to do what they do to get through, because it's a tough life. It's not easy. There's a lot of people that are going to tell you what you want to hear, and a lot of snakes out there, and so but yeah, it's probably just that them not knowing them, just seeing that person and expecting that that's who you are when you walk off the stage. But and maybe sometimes that's a good thing. I don't, depending on who it is. So
Steve, you talked about the pressure of trying to do something professionally, and especially if it doesn't work right away or doesn't work at all, or at least not to the degree that you want it to. For you, would you say that that's an additional kind of downside to performance, or is there more for your personal experience?
It's it's a hard answer. I mean, first of all, what Michelle just said, I'm glad we recorded it because you almost had a piece of lyrics there, about people telling you about it. Here you made almost a fully formed, phrase. It was beautiful, and it was insightful. So we'll give you the transcript if you want.
thank you. I'll take copyright and ownership of it right
Yeah,
now.
I think we should. Um, but I always, to this day, I say, well, my audience let me down, you know. Um, but yeah, to me, the ultimate form of art for me to do, which I haven't really done, is to just walk into a concert setting, not a restaurant, and just put my head down and improvise for an hour, and no cell phones, nothing. Then people leave, and I leave, and that's it. But to me, that's the artistic experience that I want. And so I've had different types. I've done a lot of accompanying where I'm working with soloists or playing kind of part of the scenery. And I play it as a church musician. Where I got to do a little bit of that, kind of weaving the service together. I've done a lot of conducting, choirs particularly. But, to me, that would be the performance, so I kind of regret, and I'm not done, that would, because I've done recordings that way, I have some improvisational recordings, and I want to replicate that because then it's completely new. And I think the world needs something like that, that's not a playlist or something that they can just access. They have to go to some place, sit down, have an experience, and walk away. And so that would be something, I guess, a regret that I wasn't able to do that. But I think it could be something in the future. I would love that.
So when I was in high school, we had a creative writing teacher, and she one day she asked us, "I want you to write a poem."
Hmm.
And we were all sitting there, and me as a 15, 16-year-old boy in high school, it's like, a poem? What are we doing here? It's the only poem I knew was like song lyrics, and I knew that wasn't what she was driving at. And then she said, "And it can't be about love."
Oh
And
gosh.
you saw about 90% of the class just go, "Damn it, what am I gonna do now?" You know? And so you can imagine, as a high school creative writer teacher, you're sick and tired of reading stuff about love. So there, there is a natural kind of a state for teenagers to one, to be emotive, to two, to be longing of what they feel they don't have, or what have you. I wanted to see if we can kind of circle this back to education a little bit as far as how music is taught and how and what do students need musically from their high school experience based on your background, being a teacher, being a coach, a counselor, an administrator. Where do you see room to fill in as far as music education in high school?
Gosh, that's a hard question. Um, I think the big part of music for anyone, whether you're a teenager, is just identifying with something or someone, and that's when you see somebody like, gosh, Chapel Roan is big and huge now, and she's one that, recently you would think was just an overnight success, going back to what we were talking about later, but she's been doing this for a long time, but she has millions of kids that are identifying with her and her music, and so I think, from kids in the high school perspective, we've got as far as official offerings, we've got orchestra, we've got band, um, and I think kids identify with all type of different musics. That was horrible English. Sorry, Miss Harrison, if you're listening. There's so many different types of genres of music. So, maybe opening our minds to educating students on those different types of music, on jazz, on hip hop, the beginnings of hip hop, on classical music. That might be an area now. Funding it, obviously, in education these days is a problem, but, maybe unofficially, we've got clubs here, at our high school that I'm at that, get a sponsor. In fact, we do have a music club here at my high school, and they talk about different types of music, so that's kind of a start. That's kinda where I would be thinking, and that's exactly what they're doing, is looking at different genres and looking at the history, and so, but I just think, seeing these kids from different backgrounds and just the fact that if them being able to find someone they identify with and or look up to, and because that is a huge impact. That's what I had as far as music went. I mean, you put those headphones on and you dream, and you have somebody to identify with. So I think that's real important for kiddos, especially those that don't have some of the things that they need, from parental support or home life or whatever.
Well, you also had the advantage of having an aunt and uncle that had good taste in music if they're shoving off Heart albums to you, so
Absolutely. Shout out to my uncle Tom and my aunt Tinka, and they lived in Austin. They actually, put me in touch with, the guys that, helped produce my first, album. So, no, they're huge live me and still even today. They be walking around my gigs, pushing the tip jar around, so
Ah,
they did have great taste in music, still do. And my dad, mom and dad as well. I mean, gosh, my dad, Neil Diamond, Chicago, Gordon Lightfoot.
oh.
My mom was on the countryside, that old school country, Don Williams and Merle Haggard, Barbara Mandrell. So I love country as well as rock. And but yeah, it's good to have those influences there.
Well, Herr Miller, would you like to sit in and be, you have aspirations of being a drummer. Have you ever been in a performance situation, where you're actually playing drums in front of people? Is that
would
what?
never do that to myself, it's
Come on.
my I think my when I expressed interest in drums, my dad was excited because he was a jazz drummer, he was
Yeah.
a jazz musician, and so I think he had great aspirations that I would follow in his footsteps, and it's like the first time you realize you can't hit a curveball, you feel crushed, and you're just like, "Damn it, I really love baseball," and I can't be a baseball player, and so the same feeling kinda washes over you as an aspiring musician as well. So, a lot of people think I have good taste in music, I just can't play it, and so but fortunately, I know great musicians in my life, and I have great musicians in my life, and so that kinda helps fill that void, as it as it were.
Well, suddenly we have a musical podcast because I think we do need to get Michelle back here and talk, really get into the creative process of songwriting, and we need to, if you're willing to, we'd be glad to share any links you have so people can check you out.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'd love to come back. This has been, I can't believe it's almost been an hour
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm raring up and
yeah.
ready
We're just getting
to talk.
started.
Absolutely. But yeah, people can check me out on Spotify, on iTunes. And then I've got Instagram, um, Facebook, TikTok. And I've got a YouTube music channel where I've got some old footage there. Hopefully, we'll get some new footage put up soon and some new material coming out soon. But Michelle Mayfield 25 in Roman numerals. That's the kind of the set myself apart. There's another Michelle Mayfield musician out there, so I needed to set myself.
Oh,
But yeah, please go to check me out. Hopefully they'll like the stuff, and hopefully we'll get some new stuff coming soon.
perfect.
Well, it's pretty exciting, and I'm so happy that you could join us, and I'm so happy that that you're able to share some of your experiences and what it's like to be a musician. And like Steve says, we have a lot more ground to cover, so hopefully we can get you back here sooner rather than later.
Absolutely,
But
would love to.
Oh,
well,
thanks.
as for that,
Yeah,
another
yeah.
episode of the Old School Podcast done and dusted. Thank y'all very much for listening. Remember the Old School Podcast found on Instagram at the Old School Podcast 2021. No Roman numerals, just regular old numbers. So, but still worthy of checking out, as is Michelle Mayfield's. Don't fall for that other Michelle Mayfield. Go for the Roman numerals. That's the real stuff right there. Um, with that, we shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois and Michelle.
Auf Wiedersehen. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you. It's good to see y'all.
Mhm.